The World Economic Forum praises the UAE's resilience towards the pandemic. And did the COVID-19 virus originate in Wuhan? WHO will begin that investigation next month. Details on that and much more on this Emirates News update. Hi, I'm Faraz Javed, and here are the latest stories this hour. Now, here is another reason why you should continue to wear a face mask properly. Doctors here say that aggressive precautionary measures against COVID-19 have lessened influenza and other respiratory diseases that usually surge around this time of the year. In fact, by simply following the safety guidelines, such as wearing a mask, following social distancing norms, even working and studying from home have all had a significant impact on the spread of other common respiratory diseases. What's more, the World Health Organization estimates that globally, there are up to 5 million severe illnesses and another 500,000 fatalities linked to seasonal influenza. However, so far this year, flu cases have dipped by 1/10 of the regulation figure. The UAE's resilience towards the pandemic has been hailed by the World Economic Forum. Now, according to the Global Competitiveness Report, the UAE is one of the leading countries to deploy effective measures to curb the spread of COVID-19. The study highlights the nation's strong financial system and its ability to successfully plan and integrate health, fiscal, and social policies to mitigate the effects of the crisis. Meanwhile, the WEF officials say although they suspended country rankings in their flagship report due to the unprecedented global situation, data from 37 countries were used to finalize the study. It was found that while no country is fully prepared for a complete recovery and economic transformation, some are better placed than others. For instance, the UAE is one of the best countries when it comes to ICT adoption and digital legal framework, achieving second and fourth rankings, respectively, in the report. The Dubai Shopping Festival begins today with all precautionary measures in place, and people across the Emirate are excited about what's in store for this year's event. Some say they're looking forward to the sales and shopping in person, especially after COVID-19 forced people to shop online this year. Officials say there will also be extra special celebrations on New Year's Eve and into 2021. DSF will help residents usher in the new year with concerts, promotions, and shows. This year's event will also have fireworks, top retail deals, raffles, and live entertainment. What's more, on the 26th edition of the festival will feature concerts by world-famous music stars, stunning light shows, and firework displays. Entertainment in malls and activations by big-name retail brands will also be present. The Dubai Shopping Festival will run until the 30th of January. To international news, and French President Emmanuel Macron has tested positive for COVID-19. This footage of Macron is from his last public appearance. It was taken yesterday at the Élysée Palace, where he met with Portuguese Prime Minister Antonio Costa. The French presidency made the announcement about Macron's positive test result today and that he would isolate for the next 7 days. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson says the planned festive relaxation of coronavirus rules will go ahead, but he's asking people to have a small Christmas as possible. He told a Downing Street press conference that people are being asked to reduce contact to the lowest possible number of people in the 5 days before Christmas. He also said people should avoid traveling from high prevalence areas to those with lower rates. Did the novel coronavirus originate from Wuhan, China? That's one of the key questions a team of international investigators will be looking to find answers for when they begin their probe in January. The team will be led by the World Health Organization and will consist of 12 to 15 experts from around the world. They will start in Wuhan and examine evidence, including human and animal samples collected by Chinese researchers since the start of the pandemic there. According to reports, the investigators will leave for China just after New Year's Eve for a 6-week mission, including 2 weeks of quarantine on arrival. China reported the first cases of a pneumonia of unknown cause in Wuhan to the WHO on the 31st of December and closed a market where COVID-19 is believed to have emerged. Health ministers from around the world called on the WHO in May to identify the source of the virus and how it crossed the species barrier. Meanwhile, Chinese state media have suggested that the virus existed abroad before it was discovered in Wuhan, citing its presence on imported frozen food packaging and scientific papers claiming it had been circulating in Europe since last year. Now, the first ever over-the-counter coronavirus testing kits have been approved in America. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has authorized emergency use of the COVID-19 antigen test as talks progress with a major university over its usage as part of a widespread routine testing program. The test by Ellume, an Australian-based company, offers a nasal swab analyzer that connects to a software application on a user's smartphone and gives results in 20 minutes. The company says it will be shipping over 100,000 kits per day as of January 2021 and plans to manufacture as well as deliver 20 million COVID-19 tests to the U.S. within the first half of 2021.
So it's the first non-prescription self-test approved by the FDA for adults and children to diagnose themselves with coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, whether they're symptomatic or asymptomatic. So it's the broadest self-test yet approved by the FDA for the detection of coronavirus at home. They buy a kit. Everything that they need to perform the test is inside the kit, with the exception of their personal smartphone. The biggest reason why it's going to America first is because it can make the biggest dent on helping Americans respond to coronavirus. There are, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of cases now a day in the US, and these tests are most needed in America to assist the response.
With more than 100 vaccines are now being developed and tested around the world to stop the pandemic, which has so far killed more than 1.6 million people and ravaged the global economy. Now, this is what the world has so far. U.S. drug maker Pfizer and German partner BioNTech released a vaccine that's 95% effective at stopping COVID-19. This has the highest efficacy rate so far. In fact, Pfizer's vaccine was administered to UK pensioners on the 8th of December in a world first hailed as V-Day. Then comes Moderna. Their experimental vaccine shows a 94% efficacy rate and was proven safe for all 75 healthy volunteers. China's Sinovac BioNTech says its vaccine is safe and has up to 97% efficacy. And the vaccine produced by China's Sinopharm, which was widely tested here in the UAE, has 86% efficacy. Now, besides these, there are many more vaccines currently in the making, with the hope that these jabs will eventually bring an end to the pandemic. Meanwhile, New Zealand will begin to offer free COVID-19 vaccines to its entire population by the middle of next year. New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said today that her government had secured enough vaccines to inoculate all of the country's 5 million people. In fact, 2 new agreements were signed recently with pharmaceutical companies such as AstraZeneca and Novavax to supply their vaccines. However, the delivery dates are not guaranteed, and this is due to the high demand for vaccinations, including in countries that face large numbers of COVID-19 cases and fatalities due to the virus.
We've agreed to purchase 10.72 million doses of Novavax vaccines, which is enough to vaccinate 5.36 million people. And we've also agreed to purchase 7.6 million doses of AstraZeneca's vaccine, which will immunise 3.8 million people, with a good portion of our doses is expected to arrive beginning in the first half of next year, but into the second half. Our first priority here will be to vaccinate border workers and essential staff in order to further reduce the risk of COVID passing on to the community. We expect vaccines to be delivered to our frontline workers in the second quarter of 2021. Keeping in mind, of course, we still await the data to demonstrate the effectiveness of the vaccinations that are currently being developed in reducing transmission between people.
The overall number of global coronavirus cases has now topped the 74.2 million mark, while the death toll has surged to more than 1,650,000. That's since the start of the pandemic. Those are the latest figures from Johns Hopkins University. In the next 24 hours, the worst affected country, the U.S., is set to hit a new grim milestone of 17 million cases, while its death toll approaches 308,000. Also, by the end of this week, India is projected to clock in 10 million cases, and its death tally is going to hit 145,000. Brazil is not far behind, as it has now recorded over 7 million infections, and the number of fatalities due to the virus there has surpassed 183,000. Russia is next, with over 2.7 million confirmed cases of COVID-19 and with more than 48,000 deaths. And confirmed cases in France has surpassed 2.4 million, and the death toll there is over 59,000. Okay, that's it for now. I'll be back at 5 p.m. with more updates. Till then, don't forget to check out our Twitter and Instagram feeds at Emirates_News, and you can also find me at It's Faraz Javed. Take care.